Welcome to the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show for UFC Vegas number 37. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. As always, I'm joined by the freshly haircutted fighter, Pete Rogers. I had to get a little haircut last Thursday right before opening game, and apparently you were this Thursday.
Yeah, man, trying to sneak one in before the show, and it almost turned into a disaster. I almost had to start knocking people out, but we're here. I'm happy I made it. Apologize for my tardiness, but we're here, and we have a big card to talk about.
Tell you, we've got 15 fights to break down here on the strategy show. As we thought we had lost the fight. However, Dakota Bush out due to COVID, gets to Vegas, tests positive for COVID, but Brand Jenkins steps in. We'll talk about that. Brand's actually a guy that I know, kind of know a little bit of the backstory. So I'll give you a little bit of the backstory of part of that backstory, Pete, how he did ACL recovery on his own.
I don't know about that.
COVID pandemic is and insurance is the way to sum that one up for you. But of course, we are here to break this one down for you. Of course, we're sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. We'll, of course, talk about a little Monkey Knife Fight later on in the show. Today's show is also brought to you by our brand new sports betting podcast, Betting You. Ben Ross and Matt Jesse get you ready for everything college football betting every Wednesday on your favorite podcasting platform. So be sure to check out that new podcast we have over there at Betting You. Of course, I appreciate everyone that's in here on a Thursday watching us here. Of course, let's get right into it. Pete, the main event, Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann. Anthony Smith, $9,100 over on DraftKings, $21 over on FanDuel. Ryan Spann, $7,100 over on DraftKings and $16 over there on FanDuel. As I kind of thought about this fight, Pete, my initial thoughts was the longer this fight goes on, I think it benefits Anthony Smith. I mean, you look at all you got to do is go to Ryan Spann's Tapology, Wikipedia, Sherdog, whatever your preferred site to go to is. And the fact is, he's a quick finisher. And I do have a lot of questions on Ryan Spann if this fight does hit the fourth and fifth round. That's why I think that potentially, this could be a great live betting spot after round one because, Ryan Spann may get off to a great start early on in this fight. But to me, I think that, there's obviously a little bit of concern of could Ryan Spann catch him, but this isn't like Anthony Smith. We've seen this guy get knocked out many times in his career.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Anthony Smith's first rodeo in a matchup where he's fighting a dangerous fighter with, power and submission skills. I do think that, Ryan Spann presents, a nice round one chance. And as the fight, prolongs, I do think that it starts to really tilt towards Anthony Smith in his favor. Ryan Spann, his price point, $7,100, based on his round one aggressiveness and his finishing ability, his knack for finding the finish, whether it's via hands or capturing the neck. He has a pretty sneaky guillotine choke that I think if he can hurt anybody, on any given night, he could choke anybody out. So I'm going to have exposure there to Ryan Spann. But I have to tell you, Anthony Smith is a guy that, his experience has shown through in some fights, and this could be another situation where his experience can shine through. And especially in the later rounds, I do think that he'll have the cardio advantage. And that is the liability regarding Ryan Spann, is that he has a significant drop off in volume and also in his gas tank as the fight progresses. So, I don't really think that Anthony Smith, presents so much of an offensive threat for the first couple rounds. I think that he can implement some leg kicks, possibly win some exchanges on the feet, have, a close match on the feet. But I think that his best success could be capitalizing on the gas tank of Ryan Spann as the fight goes on, possibly work towards a submission finish. Anthony Smith has some sneaky jits. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Anthony Smith has found a ton of finishes himself. So priced at $9,100, I'm expecting him to be pretty popular. And I do think that I am picking him in the fight. But like I said, I will be sprinkling Ryan Spann in just because of that round one threat.
Yeah, that submission prop of Anthony Smith via submission plus 275 really did stick out to me. Potentially, say, Ryan Spann just tires down as the fight goes on, can open up that submission there. But this is a situation with Anthony Smith where, his past couple fights, he's really been more the underdog situation, now in that favorite situation. It's a big price tag you got to pay over on DraftKings, but I don't mind getting to it. But I think you do have to sprinkle in a little bit of Ryan Spann in there. Thomas, appreciate you checking in there. Yeah, FanDuel, they get their prices usually about 230 3:00 East Coast time on Thursday. That's kind of because when I start kind of putting together my stuff, I always know about 2:00. I go over to FanDuel because that's why I know the prices are going to be out there. Thomas all saying Smith's chin feels safe. It does. I mean, you look at that Glover fight, but that was just an accumulation of strikes of, just the pounding that he took in that one. But that to me is one that you stick there. Thomas all saying Anthony Smith's jab getting better. It neutralizes Spann's power. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely say that, any boxing coach will say that, having a good jab can prevent a lot. It keeps people off of you, but it also can set up a ton of combinations. So I do think that Anthony Smith has a great jab. I think that, it's a good fight for both fighters, right? You have Ryan Spann looking to capture a big name. I just think that this is a tricky matchup, especially because his cardio is, not the best. And I don't think that he can really do what Glover Teixeira did, because Glover has a relentless pace. He also has a phenomenal ground game. So he really was outmatching Anthony Smith in all departments in that fight. And that really, I remember we broke that fight down. That kind of like completely shocked me. That was just like the COVID era. I think that was the beginning of the COVID era when things were just going crazy. Justin Gaethje was tooling on Tony Ferguson. It was just a weird time. But I will say that, I like Anthony Smith in the fight.
Of course, this is the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. Appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to watch and listen to us. Of course, if you're not subscribed to Awesemo right here on YouTube, you got to do that. Hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. And do want to let you know that our free premium data and tools over at Awesemo.com today is NFL Showdown / single game player rankings and MLB player projections. Of course, coming up after us, will be get you ready for tonight's NFL Thursday slate. Giants and the Washington football team. I have to always remember not to say Redskins, Washington football team. Sometimes it's just so much in the vocabulary there. Let's move on to the co-main event here. We got Cutelaba taking on Devin Clark. Cutelaba, $9,000 over on DraftKings, $19 over on FanDuel. Devin Clark, $7,200 and $12 over on FanDuel. Like, Pete, I don't think this is a hard one really to break down. Like, if you're Devin Clark, the mindset has to be survive 5 minutes of fury. Try to get this one into the second and third. Hopefully that you can wear down that gas tank goes out of Ian Cutelaba, because look, he's a wild man. But man, those first 5, 6, 7 minutes, you got to be ready for that storm. We always talk about with Justin Gaethje, you got to be ready for that 7, 8 minute storm. Ian Cutelaba is the same type of fighter. So like, if I'm Devin Clark, let's not get into a brawling situation. You got to make this a fight up against the fence in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky fight for Devin Clark, to be honest. I think that he's, pretty good in the clinch, but I think that he's not offensive in the clinch. I think that he usually has the wrestling advantage in a ton of matchups. Not really sure if he's going to have that here against Ian Cutelaba. I think it's going to be pretty back and forth in the wrestling department. I think that both guys can secure takedowns. I do think that the aggressiveness and the offensive striking of Ian Cutelaba is what's probably going to inflict damage and probably cause Devin Clark some issues here. I understand the cardio liability. I mean, this card screams GPP and it screams tons of, cardio liability throughout. So I think that Ian Cutelaba is a perfect GPP candidate. I really like him in the matchup, to be honest. I think that I've never really been a Devin Clark guy. I understand he's a very good wrestler. I understand he trains at Elevation in New Mexico. But he still has to win the fight, right? Like, he can't get controlled and lose 2 rounds and then look towards making a 3rd round comeback, because he's typically not a finisher, Jason. So I don't really see him being able to do that and capitalize on a position like that. I really like Ian Cutelaba in this matchup. At 9,000, I think just his I don't think he's going to go out there and get takedowns against Devin Clark. But I think from watching fight film, there have been periods of time where Devin Clark looks somewhat checked out once he starts to get hit. Certain fighters respond well when they get hit. And to me, Devin Clark does not really respond well. If Cutelaba can sit there and, throw tons of clinch strikes, hit him with some big shots, I really feel like he can get him out of there within 2 rounds. So I am siding with Cutelaba. But if you really just want like a safer underdog to possibly come through, then I think Devin Clark could sneak out as a decision.
Yeah, I was just looking up, maybe see if there was a little juicy prop out there, but it's not really that juicy. Of Devin Clark winning by decision plus 225. So there's not a ton of juice out there. But to me, I do like Ian Cutelaba in the matchup. I mean, like, look, if I'm developing a single entry lineup, Ian Cutelaba is probably someone I'm going to look into. I mean, now look, we saw Alonzo Minifield put it on Devin Clark in that first round, but Devin Clark was able to survive. I mean, there might have been some doctors that might have stopped that fight after the first round, the way it was going. But, to me, if you want to be an Ian Cutelaba backer, the only concern you have in this matchup is he gasses out, and you just hope that it's not a situation of, it's heading into the third round. You got to gas out Cutelaba, and now you're concerned. I mean, if you're taking Cutelaba in your lineup, you're banking on a first or second round finish.
I would agree, and I don't think that either fighter are really good off of their back. I think that if Cutelaba gets on top, it's very dangerous for Devin Clark. I think that if Devin Clark gets on top, it's very dangerous for Ian Cutelaba. So I'm not really seeing it play out that much in that certain specific area. I feel like if people, land takedowns, so they're going to work back to their feet, and it's going to be a tit for tat type of situation. I think it's going to be one in the clinch, to be honest. And I don't think that's a bold thing to say.
And Kingslayer bringing up that Cutelaba coming off a few losses could go to a decision. If you think Ian Cutelaba is going to win the decision, now that's a little juicy. 6-1 odds there.
I mean, I like what he's saying. And whenever you have two fighters that, are so similar in certain areas of fighting. So wrestling and in the clinch, they could possibly negate each other. So this could end up being a closer fight than what we would imagine, but priced at 9,000 for Cutelaba, I think that there is some finishing potential. If he's possible, he has to know he has a terrible gas tank, and he has to possibly make adjustments, right? If he can make that one adjustment, I really feel like he could be a dangerous fighter.
Let's move on to the next matchup, as we've got Nicholas Motta taking on Cameron VanCamp. Motta training out of Factory X here with Anthony Smith. VanCamp out of that Midwest scene, stepping up to get this fight here. And this is one of those fights this week when we're talking on the DraftKings side of the equation, because of odds were, lines were already out there. You got a little leverage here in terms of that. You got Nicholas Motta 7,900. Cameron VanCamp 6,800, but over on FanDuel, it's what you would expect with this type of matchup: $21 for Motta and $10 for Cameron. I guess in terms of the underdog here, can you make a case of what his best path to victory is?
Yeah, I think for VanCamp, right, he has to look at capturing the neck of Motta and winning this fight on the mat. I understand that he's reckless himself on the feet, but I do think that that's really playing with fire against Nicholas Motta. I think that Motta here at 7,900 is an interesting play. I feel like we have to roster this fight because both fighters are under that 8,000 threshold, right? It makes sense that you're going to get a victor out of here. Well, let's hope, knock on wood, that you're going to end up with a victorious fighter in this matchup. And it just makes the lineup construction so easy. So this is a priority fight for me. And I do think that it screams GPP. So I think that Motta possesses some incredible knockout power and good combinations. He's reckless himself, but I feel like we're starting to see him somewhat mature over the years. And if he can refine some of his technical flaws and also decision-making, I think that he can end up being a pretty dangerous fighter for this division. But with all that being said, one scramble, Motta leaves his neck out there. I do think that VanCamp could have the jiu-jitsu edge. So it could get interesting, and you could have a 6,000 fighter. And I actually think we could have multiple 6,000 fighters ended up coming through this week.
I think you have two fights on this card just in terms of DraftKings salary that you have to kind of, in a way, circle those fights and say, you know what, because of salary, I have to look at that. This is one of those matchups, and we'll talk about the other one matchup later on of Zoo and Jenkins. I think that's going to be another one just because of salaries. Like, we don't know what Brand Jenkins' salary is going to be quite yet, but we already know what Zoo's salary is. So I think those are two fights as DFS players, as we're developing our lineups. These are two fights we have to circle. Yeah,
I think so. And, all about prioritizing certain fights in order to build lineups. That's how I go about it. I also look at, who is the best value on the slate and how I can get over the field on certain fighters. We'll discuss all that as this card goes on, but I do really think that this is an interesting card to play some MMA DFS. I'm not sure that we're going to have all of these fights come Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, I should say. I think we're going to lose about one, maybe two. If I had to guess, I'd say we're going to lose one more fight.
All right. So 1.5. You going under or over?
I'm gonna go under. I say we just lose one fight.
Usually, yeah, especially when you get to Wednesday of fight week. So now everyone has passed their COVID tests when they've gotten to Vegas. The next key test will be on Friday after the weigh-ins. Then they'll get tested again. Then if there is any COVID issues, it would happen on Friday afternoon, Saturday morning of when maybe a fight gets canceled. Or, of course, weigh-ins are Friday too.
Weigh-in disasters. Yep. Weigh-in disasters are mainly my reasoning behind it. And fighters taking fights on short notice and trying to step up and be that answer for the UFC and end up backfiring. So I'm saying one more fight gets scrapped, but let's have our fingers crossed and hope that none of them do.
Yeah, it's that's the world we live in. I kind of joked in my show on yesterday. I said between the UFC and Bellator card, we have 29 fights. How many get canceled?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Probably 6.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, if you want to get access to all the great Awesemo plus tools and content we have for nearly every DFS site out there, you guys sign up for an Awesemo weekly pass for $29.95. Includes full access to all the great premium content, data, and tools we have over at Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, and so much more. And if you're a new user of Awesemo Plus Platinum, then you got to take advantage of the promo code we have for this show, which is MMA Strategy Show, all caps, one word. That's MMA Strategy Show for 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus. And if you're just looking for an Awesemo Plus MMA weekly package, you can get those as low as $2.95 a week. So be sure to check out everything we got going over there at Awesemo.com. Of course, myself and Pete will be back here on Saturday for Live Before Lock, as well as we'll be on for 1 hour leading you up to UFC Vegas number 37. Next up, we have got a female matchup. Ariana Lipski taking on the UFC debuter, Amanda Bohm. 8,200, 8,000 fight here. Lipski is the 8,000 fighter. They're both $15 over there on FanDuel. Pete, break it down for us.
Not sure if I need to get exposure to this fight, to be honest. I feel like both ladies like to stand up and trade. I do think that any fighter facing Ariana Lipski could be looking to exploit her defensive wrestling flaw, where she constantly gets controlled on the mat. And, most of her losses are because of that. When she's on the feet, not too many fighters enjoy, trading shots with her. I do think, the UFC vets being somewhat disrespected, but I understand that Manny Bohm is an interesting fighter, an interesting prospect. I'll have to lean towards Ariana Lipski's side based on her aggressiveness on the feet, facing true, legitimate UFC competition. Manny Bohm definitely has some tools that I think can present some problems for Ariana Lipski. She can chain together a takedown or two to solidify a round. Things can definitely get interesting. But I don't know. I feel like both of these ladies might end up enjoying a striking affair, going tit for tat with each other. It's a fight that I don't feel like I need to really get too much exposure to. There's 15 fights. We have one fight where both fighters are under the 8,000 threshold already. I think this is going to go the distance. We already know the scoring for DraftKings doesn't really help the situation in the path of this fight, in my opinion. If it's a striking affair, they would have to land an enormous amount of strikes for this to really, pay off, and then to get 95 points or something like that if there's no takedowns landed. So for me, I'm okay going elsewhere with this fight. And if some other people feel stronger about this fight, then so be it.
I mean, we've talked about that with this DraftKings scoring system that came in at the beginning of the year. It really, once again, was advantage wrestlers, because now it allowed those wrestlers who were getting takedowns, but we're getting total strikes, not significant strikes. That's who it benefited. But yeah, like you said, it would have to be a ton of strikes that land out there. And just because there's so much value throughout this card, I mean, we got 15 fights first off. So, you're going to have a ton of value, and it's going to be very easy to get unique this week. I mean, I think that one way I think you could get unique is, even though I mentioned about Motta, VanCamp, and Zhu and Jenkins are two fights to pay attention to. If you want to get different, go a little less in the field on those two fights, just to help yourself get a little different. And this is most likely one of those weeks where, I mean, yeah, you could chop first prize, but the reality is that because of having 30 fighters, it's going to be very easy to get unique.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about recognizing how many fights and how many fighters there are, where some some players are being a little too aggressive over some fighters, I definitely think that we could get some leverage on the field. I do like the fact that Ariane Lipski is an American top team. She talked about training with Amanda Nunes and all that stuff. So I think that a team like that can definitely help her out in some of her weak areas. She's always been a striking force. And I think that, this is a fight for her to go out there and showcase her striking skills. I'm favoring her in the matchup, but definitely okay with getting different.
Move on. Next up, we got Arman Tsarukyan taking on Christos Giagos. 9,600 for Tsarukyan over on DraftKings, $23 over on FanDuel for Giagos, 6,600 over on DraftKings, and $8 on FanDuel. I mean, look, Christos Giagos, if he's going to win this fight, it's just taking Tsarukyan down and laying in top position. But we have seen it with Giagos multiple times now, is that gas tank just, even in fights that he's won where he's just dominated the first and second round, he gets that third round and the gas tank's not there. I mean, obviously there's a high price tag on Tsarukyan here. There's a reason he's the favorite in this one, but I know there may be people saying, okay, what about Giagos here? If you're a 150 max player, yeah, put him in some lineups. But if you're like a single entry 3 max, he's not somebody I'm looking at.
Yeah. So, how I said that there's cardio liability all throughout this card. Christos Giagos is another one, right? Like, has skills for days, skills in all departments. Probably not the better striker in this matchup. Can wrestle, can grapple, some sneaky subs as well. I just think he's going to be outgunned here against Tsarukyan, who looked phenomenal throughout his UFC tenure thus far. And against a guy in Islam Makhachev, where he debuted, he looked damn good. And since then he's won 3 fights in a row: Aubin Mercier, David Ramos, and Matt Frivola. So you talk about legitimate competition. I do think that whenever you have a fighter going against him and he is, his opponent is coming in with questionable gas tank, it's just a recipe for success for Tsarukyan. I think Tsarukyan is going to be able to go out there, impose his will. The price tag's a little scary at 9,600. It's a little rich, right? It's a little rich. I expect Giagos to be competitive. I expect Giagos to have answers for Tsarukyan in certain areas. Training at Sanford MMA, I definitely think can help him. And I think that room is one of the toughest out there. But I will say that Tsarukyan looks like he's going to be fighting for a title in the future. And I think that I'll have Tsarukyan in some lineups. But with that price tag, you really need him to come through with a finish. And thus far in the UFC, he hasn't shown that. But because of Giagos's cardio liability, he could possibly get him out of there in 2 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, when last night I was like, let me go on the DraftKings app. Let me look at these salaries. And right when I saw that one, I was like, oh, man, that's a big number.
Big number. I mean, it's more of so his betting line is really, really high as well. But I do expect him to go out there and get the victory. I mean, if you want to look at him via decision, I don't know. I feel like he could possibly get Giagos out of there, man. Like, Giagos, when he has that cardio collapse, it happens quick and sudden. And a guy that's going to push a pace and test him in all areas it's such a dangerous fight for Giagos.
Just looking at the props here, Tsarukyan wins by decision, -135. Tsarukyan inside the distance, +150. Tsarukyan via sub, +4,000, or excuse me, +400. And Tsarukyan by TKO KO, +250.
Okay, so I mean, they think that he could TKO him more likely. I'd probably just go inside the distance, to be honest, just to get a little. I'm torn between inside the distance and also via decision, because I don't really have a firm grasp on how he'll get him out of there. I just feel like he can get him out of there.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a -800 favorite in this one. I mean, he's a massive. I mean, like, from the betting side of the equation, maybe if you're trying to put together a 3, 4, maybe even a 5-fighter parlay, I wouldn't mind adding him in that parlay as someone that you feel extremely confident is going to go out there and get the win. Right.
Yeah. I think Tsarukyan's a cash play. You just go in there, you put him in there. I think he's going to get it done. But I do think that there's some cheaper fighters out there that we have some confidence in as well.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes out there and he wins the decision at 9,600, you're probably going to be saying some words we can't say on the air.
Yeah, I mean, we could say them. I'm okay. I'm okay with paying them.
You just know, when you go out there, you have a fighter at the price at that high, and they don't go out there and get a first or second round finish. Yeah, you're usually saying some words as that fight's going down.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he could go out there and take him to takedown city too. Tsarukyan has the skills, right? Like he can go out there and land 5-6 takedowns, make Giagos, want to quit, hit him with tons of strikes, and end up finishing him within 2 rounds and be optimal even at 9,600. So I'm having my shares of Tsarukyan.
Next up, we got Joaquin Buckley taking on Antonio Arroyo. Buckley, 9,300, 6,900 for Antonio. Then over on DraftKings, $20 and $11 respectively. Buckley obviously became kind of a star during the pandemic, but, he did suffer that loss there, brutal knockout loss that he had there. Once again, a big price tag for Joaquin Buckley, but I have seen a lot of people who are jumping on the Joaquin Buckley bandwagon this week.
You want to know something, Jason? I like Joaquin Buckley. This is a trap fight. I'm telling you, it's a trap fight. And the reason it's a trap fight is you have Joaquin Buckley coming off a KO loss. He's been KO'd previously in his career. Coming into the UFC, early on in his regional tape, he would throw hard shots, but how he had success was implementing takedowns. And that was such a safer approach. He would implement takedowns. I've seen him on the Bellator scene as well. He's fought legitimate competition throughout his career. And I think that if he goes the takedown well, he can have tons of success here. The problem for me is that Antonio Arroyo on the feet hits really damn hard. He kicks really hard. He punches hard. He's aggressive. He has absolute booty takedown defense. So Joaquin Buckley needs to exploit that for sure. But Buckley likes getting in there and trading with people. He really does. He has that hunt for the knockout. And I think his aggressiveness can somewhat be to his detriment, where Antonio Arroyo, if he catches him, what's Buckley's chin like? Why is he at 9,300? He just got knocked out. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I understand, like, he has such a flashy highlight, and I like Joaquin Buckley. But for me, I am much more keen to going and looking at Antonio Arroyo as a possible sprinkle for a lot of my lineups, because I don't think anybody's going to be on him. Jason.
All right, let me throw devil's advocate out there for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right, you're Dana White.
Yep.
You're Sean Shelby. You're Mick Maynard. You're Hunter Campbell. You think you have something in Joaquin Buckley. You think you have a fighter that you believe people will tune in to watch, because let's be honest about it, the UFC is in the quantity business. They're in the business of putting out a ton of content week in and week out. If we're in their shoes, we're instructing Mick and Sean Shelby, go find a matchup that puts Joaquin Buckley in the best position to succeed, though. Just playing devil's advocate. I
agree with you. I would definitely think that Antonio Arroyo hasn't shown his skills in the octagon at all. And I think that he's a limited fighter. With all that being said, I definitely think he's a limited fighter. Losing a decision to Andre Muniz, nothing to really hang your head at. Losing a decision to Deron Wynn, when you actually got, taken to takedown city and you might be the mayor. I think Joaquin Buckley can definitely exploit that for sure. But my point is, I think that there are much easier matchups. And if they wanted to give Joaquin Buckley a cupcake matchup to kind of get him back into it and say, all right, go out there after getting knocked out, get your feet wet, and, kind of get back in the win column. I think there's so many other Jordan Wrights out there that they could have given him. I don't know. I think that this could end up, Antonio Arroyo is a big guy and he hits really, really damn hard. I think, getting knocked out by DiCirico and now going up against another heavy hitter is just so dangerous. I think they could have just given him such a better matchup, in my opinion.
No, I mean, look, I'm just kind of throwing devil's advocate out there. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
It's just that it's part of the fight game. You know this. I know this. This is how matchmakers kind of think of things. Next up, we got a light heavyweight matchup. We got Mike Rodriguez taking on Tefon Nchukwi. 7,400 for Mike Rod, 8,800 for Nchukwi, and then $17 for Tefon over on FanDuel, $15 for Mike Rodriguez. Mike Rodriguez with the second largest reach advantage on this card. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage on this one. But I mean, look, when we talk about Mike Rodriguez, and we both know Mike, and being Northeast, I've had multiple conversations with Mike over the years, making his way up through the regional scene look, Mike's going to want to keep the fight on the feet. But when people have had success against Mike, it's by taking him to the ground.
Yeah. And Mike, I'm rooting for Mike like crazy. I'm friends with Mike. I want to see him succeed, but I also want to see him succeed the correct way. And that's by utilizing that reach, keeping people on the outside, picking people apart, not allowing people to get close to him, not allowing, himself to get into his slugfest. And I understand that he likes to clinch because he likes, the Muay Thai plum, throws knees, throws elbows. We've seen that on display, but in addition to his lack of defensive wrestling, whenever you allow a fighter to be inside and fight you in a phone booth, I think you're just taking away from your strengths. Mike Rodriguez could be, dancing around people, picking them apart, throwing long shots all day long. And he could definitely do that against Tafon Nchukwi. I have to say, though, Tafon Nchukwi is a guy that gets inside and throws like Mike Tyson-like combinations. Mm-hmm. This is a very, very dangerous fight for Mike Rodriguez. I'm personally going to be rooting for Mike Rodriguez, but I think Nchukwi will be probably the chalk of the slate, where he's not a 9,000 fighter, but he could get you a finish because, we can see Mike Rodriguez possibly get taken down, but also get knocked out. We've seen that happen in the past. I do worry about Rodriguez taking some shots from Nchukwi. For me, I think Rodriguez's best path to victory is dancing around and winning a decision, and Nchukwi getting inside. I think one of these shots can hurt Mike, honestly. And I think that's why Nchukwi at 8,800 is going to be a popular play.
Yeah, it's another fight in terms of developing my lineups. I am looking at as, fight to circle with, just because I do think of the possibility of a finish coming in this one. Of course, this is the Also MMA Strategy Show. Of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Of course, we've been telling you about Monkey Knife Fight for some time. Their player prop-based contests are very easy to play. Of course, head over to monkeyknifefight.com. Choose the game you want to play, your contest type, and your buy-in. And Monkey Knife Fight has an instant first match deposit of up to $100 when you sign up with the promo code Awesemo. Looking at the main event in terms of this one, Anthony Smith and Ryan Spann over at Monkey Knife Fight. Anthony Smith, 72.5 strikes landed, 45.5 for Ryan Spann. And this is one of those, it's an interesting one because, for Anthony Smith's side of the equation, I tend to if you think this fight makes it a fourth or fifth round, I think you say more on 72.5. But I kind of feel like this may be a less Anthony Smith and maybe a more Ryan Spann.
It's a definitely a tough line for sure, because I foresee this going into the later rounds, but Ryan Spann doesn't have the best volume to begin with. Will Ryan Spann possibly look towards taking Anthony Smith down? Because Anthony Smith's takedown defense is not the best. That could limit some offensive output for sure. So I'm going to be a little contrarian. I'm going to say a double S for me.
Yeah, it's a number that stuck out to me. And then the co-main event, Ian Cutelaba and Devin Clark. Ian Cutelaba, 74.5, 52.5 on Devin Clark. I like this as a double S scenario.
I would agree. I don't think Devin Clark can take that many shots from Ian Cutelaba. And I think it's going to be played out a lot in the clinch, a lot of, reversing positions and all of that type of stuff.
And the one thing I always say about Monkey Knife Fight, if you like a line on Thursday, go hammer that line now, right? Because these lines will change, and the line is on Thursday may not be that line on Saturday, but it's also kind of a good way to kind of see. Sometimes you can find better value on Saturday than you can on Thursday. So, but if you like something on Thursday, I'm telling you, go make it right now over at Monkey Knife Fight. And of course, if you're not signed up for Monkey Knife Fight yet, when you sign up, they do have an instant first match deposit of up to $100 when you use the promo code Awesemo. Next up, we have got a matchup, a female matchup. Penny Kianzad taking on Raquel Pennington. Penny is $7,500 over on TK, and over on FanDuel, she's $13. Raquel Pennington, $8,700 and $16 over there on FanDuel. Look, Penny, in terms of a FanDuel play, I don't necessarily mind, because I do think she'll probably have to stop some takedowns in this one. Over on DraftKings, I think that's a high price tag on Raquel Pennington.
I do. I do think it's a high price tag, and I don't think that she necessarily scores all that well all the time. I mean, against Marion Renault, she did score 95 points. If she scores 95 points this time, you'll be happy with that 8,700. Absolutely. Pani Kianzad definitely has, I'll say, the boxing edge, but it's slight. I don't think that she has a lot of pop, but she has some good technique and some great combinations. Raquel Pennington has some good combinations in her own right, and she's very tough, but her go is by pressing her opponents against the cage, winning the fight in the clinch, and trying to implement some takedowns. Now, I do think that, Raquel Pennington could possibly pin Pani Kianzad against the cage and, get an easy victory here by just weighing on her. And that's kind of how I foresee this fight going. I think that Raquel Pennington is not a safe play, but as long as she hasn't seen a significant drop in her motivation in training camp or her possible skills, I think that she should go out there and get a victory over Pani Kianzad. I understand that Sijara Eubanks, Pani Kianzad performed well against Sijara Eubanks. The previous fight against Davis was a little questionable. And I do think that if the same Pani comes into this fight, she will lose to Raquel Pennington. So I do like Raquel Pennington at 8,700, but it's more of a cash play than a GPP play.
I'm glad you say that, because that was exactly what I was going to say. I'd rather get Raquel Pennington over in cash than I would there. But I mean, look, I think there are some fights on this card that you could sit there and say, you know what, I wouldn't mind just unchecking it in Cruncher.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a fade fight too, right? Like, I mean, there was a time when we did fade women's MMA on some cards. We were just like, okay, uncheck. And that was because we saw it going the distance, and we saw it was going to be a low scoring affair. And I do think that this fight could have the makings for that. So especially with the price tag, right? Like, she has to do enough to pay off that 8,700 price tag.
Let's be honest about it. You might just unclick the first fight of the night too.
Well, what's the first fight of the night?
Hannah Goldy and Emily Whitmire.
I don't know. I actually have a sneaky suspicion that something's going to happen.
Interesting. Interesting. Hear your take on that one. Of course, that's a matchup where Hannah Goldy stepping up on short nose to take that matchup. Let's move on to the next one. We got Nate Maness taking on Tony Gravely. Tony Gravely, 9,200 over on DraftKings, $19 on FanDuel, $7,000 for Maness on DraftKings, and $11 on FanDuel. All right. Can Nate stop the takedowns? That's really, to me, is how you break this fight down. Is, can Nate keep this fight on the feet?
I think Nate might be one of the luckiest UFC fighters there are. I really do. I think that I was surprised with his success in the UFC. I mean, a win over Johnny Munoz, a win over an exhausted Luke Sanders, who was beating the hell out of him, and then just punched himself out. I do think that Nate Maness has some skills, right? Like, let's be real. He's 13-1. He does have some skills. He can defend some takedowns. He has some sneaky jiu-jitsu. He does have some pop in his punches. And, he's showing up. So a fight against Tony Gravely, where Tony Gravely has looked like a wrestling phenom. I mean, 5 takedowns against Brett Johns should say enough. Like, that is insane. Brett Johns is so damn good. People don't understand his Welsh wrestling. It's just disgusting. 7 takedowns against De Freitas, 4 takedowns against Anthony Burchak. In his 2 victories, he scored 138 and 110 points. So he's definitely priced accordingly. I will say, though, I am worried about his gas tank. It's like the theme of the show, right? Questionable gas tank, cardio liability. But I mean, that's like an X factor. We don't always know how good of shape people come in, what changes they make to come in better shape, where they, nursing an injury throughout camp. Is that why they didn't hit the road as much? I will say that I'm going to have plenty of Tony Gravely exposure. I think that he can get Nate Maness down. I think from top position, he can rain down some punches. I don't know if he gets a finish, but I do think that Nate Maness has skills enough to get back to his feet and then possibly get taken back down. So we could get a long drag out performance from Tony Gravely, but I think we could be pretty happy and satisfied with the score at the end of this. So I understand why people think that it's better to be lucky than good, and they're going to be targeting Nate Maness. But it ain't me. It's not me. I'm going to be back in Tony Gravely.
Well, I think Maness has got to be a guy on FanDuel you got to circle, though.
For sure.
Just because of, if it's one of those, and we've talked about this before, because of those points you get on the FanDuel side of the equation for takedowns defended, what does a situation where, let's just say Tony gets 5 takedowns. but he attempts like 20 takedowns. Those points are going to rack up for Nate Maness. So those are always something you got to think about if you're playing over on FanDuel, is those fighters that are going to have to stop those takedown offenses. That's simply something to check out over there. Thomas, appreciate there. Give me a little kudos there for some of my interviews. I was actually doing some video editing before we started the show here, trying to catch up on some of the video interviews I've done here over the past couple of days. As it's been a little busy for me.
You know what we need to do, Jason? Every card, we got to have you do an interview with every single fighter so that we could get the true details about everybody. And then we're going to use those details to our advantage for our DFS lineups. And no, I mean, you have to check out Jason's interviews. He definitely interviews some of the best fighters in the game. And, that's how our relationship and our friendship started, where it's just like, what's up, Jason? And then next thing you know, we're doing DFS shows together.
By the way, there's these transitions that happen in shows. Brandon Jenkins is a guy I talked to about a month ago before he went to had his fight there in PFL, had a great stoppage victory there, and trains out in Vegas there at Syndicate. And we're talking about pandemic, and he had time away, and it was because he tore his ACL, and he gets the surgery done. There's an issue, they have to go back in, goes to rehab. Does a first rehab session, ends up getting a bill for $600 because they thought his insurance was going to cover it. It doesn't. So basically, he ends up doing rehab all on his own in the park.
Shoot, I'll tell you what, I've been there with medical bills from fighting, and they're not cheap. And that's why insurance is so important. And unless injuries happen from a fight, you're usually not covered during training camp. So props to him overcoming that adversity. But man, I'll tell you, this fight looks like a fight we need to roster because you got Rongju at 7,600 against Jenkins, your friend, at 6,700. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say in regards to this matchup.
Look, Jenkins is a finisher. The one thing is the term of he's going to fight for your money. That's what Brandon Jenkins is going to do. This is a guy, he doesn't have that MO of, okay, I'm going to grind my way to a 3-round decision. And I thought when I did talk to him, I guess it was a month, 2 months ago, where the thing that really stuck out to me is he really talked about the impact John Wood has had on him there at Syndicate, and really helping kind of change his thought process and to where he's at now. He had a post on Instagram the other day, basically talking about this journey of 10 years to where he's at now. Gets this incredible opportunity. But I mean, look, you look at the FanDuel side of the equation, you're getting what the appropriate odds should be here. I mean, look, if this was a normal week where even if Brandon had 2-3 weeks to prepare for this fight, he would be somebody I would say, look, put him in the underdog pool, because if he wins, he's going to win by finish. But I do think if you say you got to pick one guy, Zhu is the way to go.
Yeah. So for me, right, I think that Zhu Rong definitely had a disappointing debut. I think that a lot of us thought that we were going to see more of his skills somewhat translating to the UFC octagon. Didn't really materialize in his debut, but I will say that Vargas was a tough go for sure. The X factor in this matchup could definitely be the takedowns from Rongju. I think that Rongju could, make this fight close on the feet because he's a very, very skilled striker as well. And then if things get ugly, he could look to chain some takedowns together and get in top position to really nullify the danger of Brandon Jenkins. But this is a fight where both fighters are under that 8,000 threshold again. And I will say, I'd much rather target this fight for GPPs and ignore that 8,200, 8,000 fight. I just would much rather target the other fight we spoke of and this fight, where you know that you're going to get a victor here. And Brandon Jenkins can possibly dance on the outside, hit him with some good shots, some good kicks, some good leg kicks, and then land a knockout blow. I mean, that performance in PFL was that knee was beautiful. And I know a ton of people were not backing Jenkins in that bout because his record and his tape doesn't really, it doesn't really flash too much. But I will say that in certain sequences, he has some dangerous combinations and dangerous, tricks up his sleeves. He throws, spinning elbows. He throws good knees from all areas. He needs Rongju in his face. Rongju could possibly get, taken out of there pretty early. So I will have to side with the overall mixed martial artist in Rongju. I have seen he's at American Top Team. I do think that that's a good fit for him as well. And a part of a strong camp with a disappointing debut. I think we're going to see a more pissed off Rongju looking to come in here and make a statement. But like I said, I'm going to have plenty of exposure for both of these fighters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I will have Jenkins in my underdog pool, but I think especially that price tag on Rongju, I think you got to stick out there. Right. Of course, so we do have 2 new YouTube channels that you need to subscribe to when it comes to fantasy football and betting odds out there. So you got to check out all the great tools and content we have over there at our 2 brand new fantasy football and sports betting YouTube channels. So check out there as you're looking to get ready for week 2 of the NFL. As of course, it kicks off tonight with Thursday Night Football, Giants and the Washington football team. And then, of course, on Sunday, the rest of the league will get going here, man.
Who's winning tonight? I think the Redskins still win.
I would. Did you see the meme of the 2 Giant offensive linemen blocking each other?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there was a meme. I saw it. I saw it on my Twitter timeline the other day. Yeah, two Giants offensive linemen blocking each other.
Yeah, making it tough for yourself, boys. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I look. I think Ron Rivera is a great coach. I would, obviously they've got the quarterbacks situation there in Washington, but I would much prefer go the Washington route than the Giants. NFC East, not a great division.
I'm excited for showdowns. I really like showdowns, especially for NFL. I really do. I was really, really close to chopping first with several people. So I'm excited to dive into that after this show and figure out who I'm going to be overweight on.
Yeah, you're like the king of those showdown contests.
I'm sneaky good. There was one time, right? I was winning $80,000 on an Eagles one until the final drive, the final 1 minute of the game where they did like a couple dump offs to a guy that was like $200 and I lost everything. It was just like, what could have been, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think everyone has been there at some point. Move on to the next matchup. We got Montel Jackson taking on JP Buys. Montel Jackson, 9,500 on DraftKings, $22 over on FanDuel for JP Buys, $6,700 on DK, $8 on FanDuel. I mentioned about how Mike Rodriguez has the second biggest reach advantage in this fight on this card. Number 1 is Montel Jackson, 8-inch reach advantage. Huge price tag for Montel Jackson, but I mean, look, there's a reason he's this big of a favorite.
Let me tell you, if the UFC didn't say JP Buys take this fight or you're cut, then why the hell is he taking this fight? Like, if this is a voluntary, hey, we're looking for, an opponent for Montel Jackson, why the hell did you take this fight? Who the hell is your manager? Who's looking out for you? Because this is not a winnable. Every fight's winnable, but this is not a good matchup by any means because JP Buys is going to be undersized in this matchup. He's going to have a significant reach disadvantage in the matchup. Montel Jackson has been taken down in the past, but if you look at the fighters that has taken him down, they're high quality opponents, right? Like, I don't really think that we can hold JP Buys' wrestling acumen to the same standards of Brett Johns, to a guy, Brian Kelleher, Ricky Simone, like all these little poking holes at Montel Jackson's games. I don't know. I think that JP Buys is going to be somewhat outgunned in this matchup. He's going to be a parlay piece for me. I think that getting knocked out against Bruno Silva is not really bad because I'm big on Bruno Silva. I love the camp that he comes from. I think he has a well-rounded skill set. I think it's starting to finally materialize. But I will say that this is a smash spot for Montel Jackson, and I foresee him getting JP Buys out of there pretty early. If you want to be absolutely contrarian, maybe you target the underdog in hopes that he can land some takedowns, but it's not going to be me, Jason.
So let me ask this. Would you rather get to a 9,500 Montel Jackson or a 9,600 Arman Tsarukyan?
I will say that Montel Jackson probably looks like he has the more cupcake matchup of the two. Whereas Christos Giagos will be competitive and then possibly have a drop-off in performance. And Tsarukyan hasn't really been a finisher in the UFC yet. So if you want to go by those standards, I will still say that Montel Jackson's probably the better play.
You mentioned about Montel Jackson being a parlay piece. Could the other side of that parlay piece be Aaron Blanchfield taking on Sarah Alpar? Aaron Blanchfield, $9,400, $22 over on FanDuel. And then for Alpar, $6,800 on DK, $10 for FanDuel.
This is a fight, right, where I do like Aaron Blanchfield. I do. I think that she has some incredible jiu-jitsu that she's going to put on display in certain fights going forward, and possibly this one. I think that she has some decent takedowns, and I do think that her striking is starting to catch up to her grappling. I will say that Sarah Alpar, could be outgunned in this fight in multiple areas, But let's be honest, that she ended up putting Jessica Rose Clark in some dangerous positions, and she has wrestling to possibly nullify Blanchfield here. And for me, I don't know, man. I think that this could be a lot of hype and a lot of overlooking her opponent. I expect Blanchfield to get this done. But what I'm saying is Sarah Alpar can make this ugly. And anytime you're fighting a good wrestler who can pin you against the cage and get takedowns against Jessica Rose Clark, I know that Jessica Rose Clark came back and ended up hitting her with some great combinations, defending some takedowns, blasting her with, knees after knees and getting the finish. But if you go back and you look at Sarah Alpar's regional tape, she can strike decently well. She looks to clinch immediately, pin her opponents against the cage, and if she's on top and avoids submissions from Erin Blanchfield, we could be looking at a greasy, close decision, and one that you don't know how Blanchfield's going to really handle her UFC debut. How is she going to handle the nerves? I expect that she has the higher ceiling of the two. I expect her to be the better fighter going forward in the next couple of years. I expect her to have, some legitimate contendership eventually. But I don't know. I just think that this is a tricky matchup, and this is going to be a hard-fought victory in Blanchfield's favor. But at 9,400, outside of a quick submission finish, I'm okay with getting slightly away from it.
Next up, we got Impa Kasanganay taking on Carlston Harris. Impa 8,900 on DraftKings, $16 over on FanDuel. And then for Carlston, 7,300 on DK, $14 over on FanDuel. I see you shaking your head there. What are we shaking our head about?
I'm shaking my head because I have struggled with this fight more than any fight on the card. I really have. I like what I see from Impa, but I understand that he's relatively green. I like what I see from Carlston Harris. I liked his debut. I like his regional footage. He's a little older, which doesn't really mean a lot to me, but I just think that both of these guys are pretty highly skilled, and I'm having a very, very difficult time with this fight. And hopefully you can help me out on this. I think a guy in Carlston Harris, he hits hard enough where it doesn't have to be a tricky shot. If he lands against Impa Kasanganay, I think that we could see Impa get knocked out. If Impa ends up in the clinch and gets lazy for a second, I can see Carlston Harris, wrapping up that neck and working towards another anaconda choke. I definitely will say that Impa Kasanganay at 8,900, he's priced like a fighter that's going to go out there and get a finish. In a decision win, I don't think that he comes through at his price range. So for me, if I'm going to play anybody, I'd much rather play the underdog in Carlston Harris in hopes of him getting a high score, because I think that his fighting style, he goes out there and he leaves it all on the line. He has 100-point upside, whereas I don't really know if Kasanganay has that same upside. I think he's more of a stable cash play, looking to get you an easy decision victory. So for me, I'm picking Carlston Harris in the matchup. I think his jiu-jitsu is too good. I think that his striking's too good. It's going to be a tough fight for sure, but if I have to pick somebody, it's the underdog.
The thing, I mean, look, I'm very high on Impa of what he can be in the sport. Yep. But the one thing that I think you like about Harris in this matchup is this is a vet. This guy's been around. This is 21st pro fight. Mm-hmm. He's fought legit competition throughout his career. So that's where, I think this fight's closer than what the salaries are in this fight. That's why Harris is a guy that I'm looking at in terms of my underdog pool of somebody I want in there and get to in terms of this matchup. But it could be interesting to kind of see where we see the ownership throughout the next couple of days come in, because maybe we could see some value on Impa as we get later on in the week.
100%. And let's be clear. Impa comes from a very, very strong camp in Sanford MMA. So he's going to be well-versed. He's going to have, his wrestling is going to be, up to snuff. He's going to have good striking, of course. I do somewhat worry about his chin in certain sequences. I do think that he can get cracked and hurt and then possibly, choked out from Carlston Harris. But Carlston Harris is a guy where, if we look at it, right, I think that he could be the darling that everybody's kind of just immediately putting into their lineups because he bursts onto the scene, gets a 94-point performance, 5 significant strike, lands a submission victory. But it's a very small sample size, right? We have seen Impa much more in the UFC octagon, but it's all about, overcoming adversity. And I do think that they both have tons of question marks surrounding each other.
Yeah, I mean, I've been high on Impa for years. So I just had to click the link because I saw UFC just sent out an email with updates, but it was just basically the stuff that we already knew about Jim Miller, being out of the fight against Nicholas Motta and Karen VanCamp stepping up there, and then also Brand Jenkins stepping up there. It's always when you see that, updates on UFC Vegas 37, you're like, uh-oh. Is there something we missed before we went on the air here?
Yeah, right. Do you remember that time we were doing a live before lock and we lost somebody like 5 minutes before lock or something like that, and we were all scrambled? Do you remember that?
Oh, the one that remembers me is when we lost the fight as the guy was walking to the cage.
No, I know that. That sucked. But I remember we were live before lock and we got notice that a fight was scrapped like 5 or 10 minutes before lock, and we were all scrambling.
Yeah, that's the worst thing when you have like 40 or 50 lineups and you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah, right.
You almost like say, I'm going to try to fix as many of these as I can, but we'll see how that goes. 2 more fights here left to break down here. We got Gustavo Lopez taking on Haley Alateng. Lopez, $7,800 on DK, $12 on FanDuel. Alateng, $8,400 on DK, $18 over there on FanDuel. My initial thought when I talked to Alateng, I thought about the Casey Kenny fight.
Yeah. I'm out of the Alateng Haley business, to be honest. I understand that he's, making some switches in his game, but I do think that I like Gustavo Lopez in the matchup. I like his price, 7,800. I like his boxing. I do like his wrestling defense in some of his fights. I think that he can get taken down, but he can find his way back to his feet. I do like his jiu-jitsu. I think his scrambling ability is pretty up there. So 7,800. I mean, Alateng Haley got absolutely murked by Casey Kenny, but that is Casey Kenny, and Casey Kenny's a monster. But I just feel like I think Gustavo Lopez is going to, continue with the momentum. And I think that, well, actually, no, because he had that fight against Adrian Yanez. I liked his win against Anthony Burchak, and then pairing up against, Adrian Yanez was definitely not a recipe for success. I think he needs to go back to the well, possibly implement some wrestling. I don't really see that happening, but maybe scrambling and just kind of outwork at Alateng Haley. 7,800. I like Gustavo Lopez. I'd like him to win the fight, and I like the fact that he's at 7,800.
All right, you've mentioned about the theme of this card in the show.
Yeah,
is gas tank. What about Gustavo Lopez 3-round gas tank?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. I mean, he is a lighter guy, right? So he's a lighter guy. So lighter guys, if they have somewhat of a bad gas tank, it's not as bad as, higher weight classes where they have such a significant drop off. And then next thing you know, they're like not even there. I just think that Alateng Haley is not a guy that really pushes a pace too crazy that's going to fatigue Gustavo Lopez. I like Gustavo Lopez being an extreme couture. I think that he's surrounded by good talent at that camp. Alateng Haley's at fight ready. You have a battle of 2 strong camps. I don't know, man. I like what I see from Gustavo Lopez, and I think that he can get a win over a possibly overrated Alateng Haley.
Of course, appreciate everyone that's in here on a Thursday watching the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. Of course, if you're not subscribed to Awesemo right here on YouTube, you got to do that. It's really simple. Just hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know what the show is live here on the channel. Of course, coming up here later on, we will have the NFL Showdown deeper dive at 6:30 p.m. each time, and then that'll be followed by the NFL Showdown live before lock shows. Guys, we'll get you ready for tonight's NFL action. One more fight here to break down. It's the opening fight of the night. Hannah Goldy, Emily Whitmire. Hannah Goldy stepping up on short notice. Take this matchup. She's $7,700 on DraftKings, $13 on FanDuel. For Emily Whitmire, $8,500 on DraftKings, $18 there on FanDuel. You mentioned a little earlier in the show, you might have an angle on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm targeting the underdog, honestly. Hannah Goldy, 7,700. I understand that she did not look the best in her previous performance. I do think that Belbita made some significant changes in her game, and she's always been an aggressive striker, and she was able to crack Hannah Goldy early and often and wobble her in certain moments, and that really took Hannah Goldy out of her game, and she was like a deer in headlights in some moments, and her chin was somewhat up in the air. And then in the third round, we did see Hannah Goldy mix in a takedown, it's like the final 30 seconds, but she mixed in a takedown, had some amazing work from top position, nearly finished Belbita. So I will say that Hannah Goldy can learn from that performance and say, all right, if I do that to people, that final 30 seconds is how I should fight. And that's how, like, when we broke the fight down, I thought that she'd go out there and impose her wrestling and just really go out there and get an easy victory. Hannah Goldy stays on the outside and can strike as well. Emily Whitmire at 4-4. has shown susceptibility to get submitted on the mat. And I don't really know if her UFC wins are of the best caliber at all. I think that, I think she's aggressive at times, but I don't know if she's really UFC level. I think that Hannah Goldy being a part of what's the camp in Florida, Fusion XL or Fusion, something like that. I think
Fusion
that
XL.
Yeah, I've seen videos of her. She's training, she's sparring, she's, looking pretty damn good. I think Hannah Goldy goes out there and might end up being optimal this week, to be honest. I think that she's going to go out there and possibly finish Whitmire, within 15 minutes.
Interesting.
Yeah. I have a feeling. I just have a gut feeling that I think Hannah Goldy goes out there and has her way. I mean, I look at Whitmire's tape, right? And her absence from the cage is always questionable. I mean, not really. I mean, August of 2020 is her previous fight. She hasn't been the most active. I see her just hitting pads. She's from a solid camp, but I feel like she really hasn't patched her holes over the years. And I think that a fighter that's so strong, Hannah Goldy, could possibly, exploit those holes.
All right, let's go through our straight up fight picks. These are not DFS related. There's some of these matchups, Pete, I'll tell you, a little difficult for me here. Main event, I will go Anthony Smith.
Yeah, Anthony Smith.
Give me Ian Cutelaba over Devin Clark.
Cutelaba.
I do like Nicholas Motta against Cameron VanCamp.
Nicholas Motta.
One of the fights that was a toss-up for me, Lipski and Bohm. I'm going to go with the UFC debuter, but I don't feel great about it.
Oh, I'm going Lipski. I don't feel good about that either.
Tsarukyan, easy choice there.
Tsarukyan.
Buckley or Arroyo. I will go Buckley. I have a feeling you're going the other way.
You ready for this? Antonio Arroyo, I think, cracks him and hurts him.
Interesting. This is a straight picking my friend here. I'll go Mike Rod. Got to keep it on the feet, though.
I know. I want Mike to win. I don't know if he can, to be honest.
I like Raquel Pennington against Panny.
Raquel Pennington.
Give me Gravely against Maness.
Gravely.
Give me Zoo against Jenkins.
Yeah, wrong Zoo.
I will take Montel Jackson. Aaron Blanchfield. Give me the upset in Carlson Harris.
Ooh.
I got to get some underdogs in here somewhere.
All right, I'm going Carlson Harris.
I'll go Gustavo Lopez.
That's right, Gustavo.
And you sold me on Hannah Goldy.
Let's go. Hannah Goldy. I swear to God, Hannah Goldy.
Sometimes you sell me these things. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. Of course, if you do have any questions, get those lined up here. We'll get them in here before we go. Of course, he's got his usual questions here. So let's just start right from the top. Top two cash. For me, it is Montel Jackson and Tsarukyan. I mean, they're a high price tag, but I feel the most comfortable in those two fighters.
100%. It's a cop-out answer, but that's the answer. Tsarukyan and Jackson.
Top two GPPs.
Those two fights we spoke of, where both fighters, the Jenkins and Rong Zhu, and the other one is the Motta and VanCamp. Those are definitely the two GPP fights. So I will say Nicholas Motta and I will say Rong Zhu.
Ian Cutelaba to me is a GPP play that I think you have to be looking at there. Underdog plays. In terms of just kind of looking at salaries here, I think you got to look at. I think Nick Maness is someone I think you have to look at, but it's something that you have to say you believe he's going to stop the takedowns. In terms of other ones, to me, Carlson Harris, Gustavo Lopez stick out to me.
Okay, you ready? So we got Nicholas Motta, even though he's not an underdog, but he's under 8,000. Hannah Goldy is the one I'm going to say. That's sneaky fight. I think that she can go out there and finish her opponent.
In terms of MVPs, Montel Jackson's one that sticks out to me.
Yeah, I think he's getting a round one or round two finish, to be honest.
Favorite inside the distance. I'm looking at Ian Cutelaba, and I think Anthony Smith gets it done by stoppage at some point.
I think Montel Jackson gets him out of there. I think that the Motta fight in VanCamp I don't think that fight's going to go the distance, to be honest. I think somebody's getting put out one way or another.
So Samuel set the line of finishes. I think his number's way too low. 6.5.
Oh, yeah. Come on. What's a trash line, Sam?
Like, I would think if you told me you want to set the line at 8.5.
Oh, damn. Jason's always like super conservative.
Look, there's some fights on this card.
I'm saying more.
They've got high probability. What would you set the number at?
7.5. Make it tough.
15 fights, bro. 15 fights.
I'm saying more though. I say there's 9 finishes.
Look, if this card has 7, 8 fights go the distance, it is going to be a long afternoon, early evening of fights.
Damn. Yeah, it'll be a long. I got to work too. Hey, the longer the fights go, the more I will be occupied while I'm working. So I don't mind.
Yeah. Upset of the night. I'll go Carlson Harris.
Okay, I'm gonna say for just betting purposes. And a sprinkle. I talk about a sprinkle because it's extremely dangerous. But I'll say Antonio Arroyo over Joaquin Buckley.
Pivots from the main fight. I'm guessing means main event.
You got plenty of them, right? Like,
yeah, there's 15 fights.
You got plenty of them, but you do have 5 rounds to work with for Anthony Smith to possibly go out. I mean, if he gets murked for 2 rounds or maybe even 3, and then he pulls it off, he still needs to score a lot. If these guys are 8,200, 8,000, then I think it's a must roster fight because there's 5 rounds on the line. But at 9,100, Anthony Smith still has to do enough in a win to really pay off. And, you know, when there's so many other fighters on the card, I don't really know if you have to lock anybody in.
We'll leave on this question from Matt. He says, with 15 fights right now, is a main event a must roster this week in DraftKings GPPs?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like playing off what we just said. I don't think it's a must roster. No. I think that they're both going to be competitive in moments. If Ryan Spann's camp is smarter, they'll try to tone him down and try to work on his cardio all camp. That's the number one thing. So I don't think it's a must roster fight. I will have plenty of exposure to it because I do think a finish comes eventually. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this fight card. We got 100 people watching this right now. We got plenty more that are going to be watching this in the next couple of days. If you appreciate what we do, if you could just hit that like button, we do appreciate you guys.
And if you're watching the show after the fact, leave a comment in the YouTube section. Myself and Pete will get to those questions. We always check those comments, so we're always in there. So check that out. Of course, we'll be back here on Saturday, live before lock, 3 p.m. Eastern time to get you ready for UFC Vegas number 37. Of course, coming up here in about just under an hour and a half from now, it'll be the NFL Showdown Deeper Dive. The guys will get you ready for tonight's NFL slate. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Also MMA Strategy Show. We will talk to you on Saturday for live before lock. Have a good day, everybody.